I'm a critic, and welcome back. We're continuing the NFC North draft recap as we're now 2 down and 2 more to go. And we're going to talk about probably the biggest. You okay, man? Because you got knocked out. And that will be our boys in purple, the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings is going through another turmoil at quarterback. I remember the day when they got Dante Culpepper at USC, and I felt like he was going to be the next great quarterback, and then he didn't, and then eventually injuries hurt that dude's career, even though he went to a lot more team. Raiders, Miami, Detroit, so I guess. But then they got people like Christian Ponder, which made people go, huh? So that's another one. They had Javaris Jackson from South Alabama. So he was a starter at times. They got Donovan McNabb, the last end of his career. So the Vikings quarterback situation have just been, huh? That even when they had success, like with Case Keenum, it's like, and it's gone. So I feel like this could have been the year where Minnesota was like, enough is enough. Let's take this seriously, but also not kind of expose how desperate we really are. So let's not sugarcoat this, but with the 10th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan. I have heard everything about Michigan's system, how JJ is not considered, a quarterback because he didn't have to do much to save when the defense and the rushing attack was successful. In a perfect world, I get that. But in my defense to Minnesota, you knew they needed a quarterback. And since they didn't really address it as aggressively, I mean, Sam Darnold, yeah, as you think, there were talks that JJ was going to be the Vikings' choice. And I feel like when it comes to quarterback, I know we heard things like Daniel Jones from the Giants where they picked him up out of the Duke so early. When it comes to quarterback, even if you believe that they're probably a second-round pick, there's no guarantee he will be there in the second round. They might get the team thinking, oh, crud, he's still here? We'll take him. We don't really need a quarterback, but our quarterback reached the age of 35 last year, so he's still there. And I feel like Minnesota could not risk that type of situation, so they had to pull the trigger, even though it was heavily speculated that J.J. McCarthy was going to be Minnesota's choice anyway. So he's a now sticker because I feel like very few times now, if Minnesota had, let's say, Kirk Cousins still, then I probably would put as an else that he probably won't play this year, but still a first-round pick. Because everybody wants either the Mahomes, which he comes in right away and shows out, or the Jordan Love where he waits and then he comes out and he blows up. So people want Mahomes now or Love later. Sounds like an adult graphic novel starring Patrick Mahomes. Oh boy, ideas. Anyway, so it was obvious that they were going to get McCarthy, and let's just be thankful that at least they got a quarterback. I mean, they could be Denver and get Bo Nix, the last good quarterback in the first round. We'll talk about that when we talk about Denver. So that to me was the not so big surprise. We all kind of knew because they kind of advertised it heavily, even though there was some speculation that team would trade and Drake May might fall in their laps. Oh, yeah, sure. But then the pick where I said, you stole that because somebody got a quarterback when they weren't supposed to. With the 17th pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Dallas Turner. Oh, my apologies. Let me do that again. With the 17th selection in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings somehow stole Dallas Turner, edge, Alabama. Dallas Turner was heavily viewed as the first defensive player to get off the board. Not the first pass rusher, not the first, the first. Even defensive backs were viewed as, you got to be top 10 probably, top 15, top 20, but Dallas Turner is still going first before all y'all. And funny enough, it was another number 15 out of college on the other side of the United States in the coastal California coast of UCLA, who became the first defensive player off the board. Funny enough, at number 15. So it was 15 to 15, drafted in the 15th. Number conspiracy. Ooh. But Dallas Turner going to Minnesota, this might be a stretch of comparison, but I'm getting Houston Texan last year vibes. They got a brand new quarterback because they need it. And they got a captain, a young new player, dominant defensive force, who also plays for Alabama too. So they, within 7 picks of each other, Minnesota got their new quarterback and their new defensive weapon roughly back to back, similar to what the Houston Texans did. Now, am I thinking that J.D. McCarthy gonna have a C.J. Stroud season? I'm not saying that, but I just feel like you guys got literally 2 captains, one on each side of the football, for hopefully the next 10 years if all goes well. And Dallas Turner, who I will admit I was still going, you sure? You sure? Because sometimes there's some pass rush that I get Vernon Golston vibe from Ohio State. Those of you remember Vernon Golston? He was picked by the Jets back in the day, who had like 3 sacks in 3 years, and his whole career was just disappointing, but he was scary as hell at Ohio State. For those of you that remember, good on you. That's what Dallas Turner and all pass rushers that I feel bug me. I always feel like, is this a con? Are we disguised? I mean, Minnesota's running a 3-4 defense, but I feel like that speaks wonderful for him. So I feel that, but hopefully he's more Anderson than Golston. That's all I'm saying. So after those 2 big picks in the top 17 picks of the round, Minnesota took a break. They said, hey, we got a captain of our offense and a captain of our defense. Knock on wood, hopefully so. What do we do now? Well, we got a pick in the 4th round. Oh, we do. Okay. What is it? Well, with the 108th selection, the Minnesota Vikings selected Kyrie Jackson, corner, Oregon. All right, we got a defensive back. All right, we're going to help get that defense up because we're going against potentially 3 great quarterbacks 6 times. Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, and Jared Goff. So let's shore up that secondary because it didn't really work out well last year. But then again, our pass rush did not help too much. So let's shore up that defensive back department by getting some corners out there. So getting Jackson to Oregon, I feel like it was, I mean, you got Brian Murphy. You got Evans on the other side. So you got players, but Jackson could be a steal for the Minnesota Vikings down the line. I still give him a now sticker because getting picked, yes, in the 4th round, but I still feel like we'll see him in packages potentially. I still feel like 4th round pick for a corner when most corners around it almost have up to 4 on the field at a time based on packing situations. Jackson could probably see himself in it, and I still believe in the first 8 weeks he'll make impact enough to be considered, a qualified playmaker contributor. Then we go to the 6th round because Minnesota took another long break. They got 2-6 and 2-7, so they just, well, I'll let you know. With the 177 selection in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings selected Walter Rouse, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. Nothing screams security than an offensive tackle, which, according to the projection for this man, he is viewed heavily as a left tackle backup to Christian Darrisaw, which, similar to how I feel about the Chicago Bears pick, is this guy is a left tackle. Hopefully you're going to develop him early enough to eventually become your left tackle to protect your franchise quarterback in McCarthy for 10 plus years. That's how I'm looking at it like that. And Oklahoma, to me, has, like I said about the Chicago thing, one went to Oklahoma, the other went to Yale. So not to criticize, but just doing the eyeball test here, if I were to just tell you, the offensive lineman from Oklahoma versus the offensive lineman from Yale, not to put stereotypes on Ivy League schools, but maybe you feel a little more comfortable with the Oklahoma guy being your left tackle than the Yale guy. Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's just how it probably will be perceived. That you got an Oklahoma guy coming in there, and right now he's projected to be the backup at left tackle, but he's probably being looked at left tackle anyway, probably as a future security blanket for McCarthy or whoever they decide to keep moving forward with the quarterback position. So in the 6th round, with the 203rd selection, the Minnesota Vikings selected William Richard, kicker, Alabama, starter, now sticker. Obviously, he's a kicker, he's a punter. They get, those guys are drafted, and they're literally given, here's your starter roster, you're the starter, here's your depth chart, you're the starter right now. Because why would you put a pick of value on a kicker if he's not going to start? Heaven forbid he gets hurt in training camp, but that's not your fault. Not really anyone's fault, just sometimes it happens. But more than likely, you brought him in there because they only take up one roster spot, because you will not be willing to put 2 kickers on the roster and a punter when you probably want to use that extra guy on a receiver, DB, offensive lineman, quarterback, what have you. So he's your starting kicker, unless otherwise. God forbid they cut him because he sucks. But then again, that'll look more bad on the draft pick. Not as bad as Tampa's kicking history of drafting kickers. We're bad at that. Then we go to the 7th round, the last 2 picks for them, which is about 2 picks apart from each other. With the 230th selection of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Michael Jurgens, center, Wake Forest. Now, you got Garrett Bradbury. I feel he's a solidified offensive lineman, so I'm not going to harp too much on it. Also, Michael Jordan is viewed as a 3rd string center, but I'm going to bank on the fact that I feel like centers are understandably hopefully adaptable to move to guard, so therefore he becomes value. Maybe he's a little raw because you got Bradbury. I feel confident Bradbury is your guy, so I'm not going to see him. I'm going to put him in the category of he could potentially get some playing time at the guard position, and mainly because of injuries, I'm giving him the later sticker that he could probably get some playing time, or maybe get a starting job if he makes the roster as a backup and an injury happens and he gets some playing time. But at center, with Garrett Bradbury and even Dan Feeney in front of him, he could be just riding the bench for the whole season. It's a good chance like that. But I'm banking on the fact that he could probably get some playing time. And because offensive line injury is the big thing that I just feel a little more inclined to give him that nod than the other way around. And then with the last pick, from 230 to 232, like I said, not even that far away, in the last pick. In the 7th round, the 232nd selection, the Minnesota Vikings select Levi Drake Rodriguez, defensive tackle, Texas A&M Community. So you got, okay, back to level of competition. Here we go again. Level of competition. We're doing this again. It's no disrespect to the schools. It's not. It's just acknowledging what it is. Level of competition happens differently probably for Texas A&M Commune versus Texas A&M SEC. But you guys use a draft pick for a player from there, which means this guy has, you look at him as, but because thanks to Brock Purdy, I feel like there's no longer a view of you're a 7th round pick, good luck trying to get the roster. I feel like nowadays you have to look at these 7 selections at least, some get more, some get less, as we're looking at you because we believe you can be a starter on this team or be a contributor consistently than just hold the clipboard and ride the bench for 3 years and then we let you go. So I have to consider that Minnesota sees something in this diamond, in this rough here, that he could be something great, because it's hard to ignore the level of competition as an argument point to counter this young man's potential. Not to mention he's a 7th round pick, a late 7th round pick. So I can see the argument for that there. But in my defense, I believe he can probably get some playing time later. He's probably still like very, 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 very raw. But I still feel that you put a pick on him when you probably could have got a defense tackle from a much higher recognizable Division I school, but you didn't because you probably saw something in this young man that made you think this guy has something. He may be raw, he may need some time, but we don't need him to be right now. We need him to be later. But let's take him and see if we can get a steal with him. Do I think he's a steal? I don't have that confidence. Then again, I don't watch much film about this guy. But I got to go based on you guys picked him from this school because you believe there's something in there that surpasses what Division I school believe all defensive tackles should be. This guy has something that didn't get the attention maybe for whatever reason. Not everyone goes to big schools just because they have a veteran get drafted. Sometimes they want to stay closer to home, so they go to a smaller school. And sometimes they can go to a bigger school and then they thrive. I mean, we don't know everyone's situation when it comes to athletics, especially when it comes to football. So, for all I know, this guy probably had his choice and he says, I want to stay closer to home. We don't know. We don't know. I'm sure we can find out. But this is basically about the draft pick, not about the person's character. There's something in there, but I'm still putting it later. He might get from rotation if he develops in the preseason and in the offseason. But if he does develop, we'll probably by week 10, week 11, we'll probably start seeing some flashes of him. So that's the Minnesota Vikings draft capital. What do I see from them? Because of the quarterback situation, I cannot give them contenders, and because the division is going to be too hard right now. Do I feel like the team will be better than last year? Yes. I'm still probably looking at best an 8-win season at best. I mean, Minnesota, I mean, they pushed their season as far as they can with quarterbacks by committee, basically. And in some instances, they still were up, keeping their head above water during the whole season. So, I mean, for all I know, McCarthy could show out. Dallas Turner has a 10-plus sack performance. They shocked the world with some upsets. But right now, they're better than they were. That's why I'm giving them a better. I think they'll be better. I think they're better, mainly because I think the quarterback position will be solidified better, not be plagued with injuries and put in a major gap. Justin Jefferson is the big question mark I have about their offense, but right now I'm going to put as I think the Vikings will be better than last year, at least in the health department anyway. And could they make the playoffs? No. I know my rating is because they could, but you really going to say that all four teams in the NFC North are going to make the playoffs? I want that to happen someday, NFL. You know, rig the system for me to happen that a whole division makes the playoffs, but I just don't see it. Sorry. And that's the Minnesota Vikings. So we're going to our last team in the NFC North, and that'll be the defending champion themselves in the Detroit Lions. And we'll see, did they get better, and how can they get better than what they were? It's a question that even scientists can find the answer to. But I'll try my best. So until next time, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you very much for watching.